My name is Sharon Coleman. I am the host of the Perfection Rejection show, how to finally overcome your perfectionism and get shit done. And I am here today with Jaclyn Mellone. She helps experts exponentially grow their businesses by becoming the go-to authority in their space. She's a coach, strategist, keynote speaker, mama, guac lover, and host of the Go-To Gal podcast. Jaclyn has spoken at marketing conferences around the US and grown her social media channels to over 50,000 followers, and has been featured in Entrepreneur, Yahoo Finance, Reader's Digest, and many more. So welcome, Jaclyn.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you here. So I would love to talk about the personal branding. And first off, just for people who aren't familiar with it, what does that mean? What is personal branding?
And I think there's so many people who have this question, right? Of what is this? And there's probably a million different definitions. But what I like to say, because I have found people that are like, well, I don't have a personal brand, or I don't want a personal brand. And listen, I was that person when even though it's funny, before I started my own business, I actually have experience doing personal branding as part of my career. But when I came into this online space, I was so resistant to it. And my first business in the online space was a brand. It did not have my name attached. I did not want to be a part of it at all. In fact, when I was joining Facebook groups and doing things online, I used to go on the Facebook app on my phone and hide it from my feed. There was back then it used to show in your feed if you joined a Facebook group or something. So I was basically in the witness protection program and did not want anyone to know I was starting a business. Well, joke was on me, because as I was joining those Facebook groups and as I was asking for help and talking about what I was working on with my business and seeking the friendship and mentorship that I needed to grow, I ended up building a personal brand by accident, right? Because whether you want a personal brand or not, you have one. You being you, if you have a social media account, if you are engaging or interacting with anybody, even if it's not in a way that you think is curated or professional or representative of anything going on, if you are engaging with people, you are building a personal brand. So getting intentional about building a personal brand and getting intentional about what we want people to know us for, what we want to be the go-to for, is when we're able to take that thing that's happening anyway, right? And actually use it to our benefit to get known, to stand out, and to be able to help more people. So a personal brand is essentially what people think about you, how you make people feel, and what you're known for. And those things happen whether you intentionally have a brand or not. So I say, let's be intentional about it and leverage this as a way to, in the work that I do, it's mainly with people who are building a business. Now, sometimes that whole business is their personal brand. Sometimes it's a branded business and they're leveraging that personal brand to help build the business. But these same techniques also apply to people in the corporate world and helping them get jobs, get that dream job, or maybe even be able to transition outside of the corporate world. So this applies everywhere.
So speaking to that, so you said you were hiding all of the things, and that's it's kind of huge for me, and it's probably kind of huge for a lot of people who are perfectionists, is this fear of being seen. Mm-hmm. What can people do to not have that fear? And then I'd love to have you talk more about how we build that intentional brand.
Yeah.
But I think the fear is kind of a huge factor in stopping us from even thinking about ourselves as a brand.
Totally. And I wasn't aware of it at the time, but I had so much fear around this: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of all the things, and perfectionism, right? For sure. And that is something that I call myself a recovering perfectionist, but it still comes up for me time and time again. Now I just have the tools and awareness to be able to tackle it when I'm realizing that about myself, right? But back then, as I, now have some distance and have looked back over the years, I'm like, what was I so afraid of then, right? And what I think it was for me was that I was what I call myself a wantrepreneur for a solid decade. So I had started very little tiny businesses. Sometimes it never got past a logo stage. Sometimes I was for my first business, I was actually on the front page of our local business section, right? And so I did have a lot of attention around something that then kind of fizzled out. And there was a lot of ideas that followed, and none of those really went anywhere. So I had started online and had big ideas and big dreams and felt really good about them. At least that's what I was telling myself. But there was something about letting people know that that's what I was doing, is I was afraid of their insecurity, their doubt, right? I was afraid of them calling me out and saying, well, what about those other 10 businesses that you tried to start in your 20s? I was afraid of all of the judgment and the critique. I also was working for a family business at the time. And so I was concerned about how that would affect things and a whole host of factors, right? So looking back, that's clear to me, but then it wasn't. And what I would say for anyone who's in that situation now, where you feel yourself holding back and you're afraid of that judgment, this isn't like a quick fix thing, but the biggest and best thing you can do is to take that spotlight off of yourself. So when we're coming from that place of fear of all of these things, we're putting that spotlight on us. Like everyone is paying attention to us and judging everything we do. And here's the thing, creating content from that place is actually a horrible strategy, right? Whether you're thinking good things or bad things, creating content with that spotlight on you and having it all be about you is not a good place to show up in your business with, right? Even though this is like the biggest thing about personal branding is it's not about you. We think our personal brand is all about us, but it's not. It's how can you help other people? So when you find yourself just like trapped in that perfection and fear, taking that spotlight and turning it around and putting that spotlight on who are the people that need to hear what you have to say. And what are they struggling with? And what do they need to hear from you? And what are they experiencing right now? And creating from that place of service, from that place of leadership, and that place where it's not from fear, but really out of helping.
That's been the underlying theme of this show, in every stretch of the way. And so one of the things I've come to realize in the process of this is that all self-consciousness is selfishness.
Ooh, that's such a quotable. Yes,
yeah,
so true.
So as soon as you realize, I was just being like, every time I feel self-conscious, I'm like, oh, quit being so selfish. just quit it. That's just selfish.
Oh, and that's good for so many reasons, because one, it like really jars you into like, okay, I'm being selfish right now. But it also, by saying it out loud and by saying it in that tone, you're taking something that could feel really heavy and making light of it. And that's going to really help you snap out of it too. So right. I love everything about that.
For sure. So I would love some really like practical stuff, because okay, in all honesty, I stopped doing social media 2 years ago. A lot of it was because I hated it, and a lot of it was because I was hiding. And obviously, and I literally stopped. Like I was not online for 2 years, and I came back. I'm like, whoa, this place has grown. It's huge now. So what are some really practical things somebody can do to start building their personal brand?
Totally. So one shift you can make is going from that, like, it's all about me, I'm the brand, I'm the personal brand, taking that shift to being that authority, that trusted advisor, right? So showing up in our content in that way. One of the like cliche things people say is like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, my take on this is, let's make sure we're leading thirsty horses to the water, right? So instead of focusing on the tactics and conversions and the force and the loudness of like, how do we get this horse to drink? It's let's back up and let's make sure that we're corralling thirsty horses. And it seems so simple, but this is a really important part of it, right? As we're building our personal brand, it's also about who are we talking to? And are we talking to the right people that are actually thirsty for what we have? And when that's the case, when we truly are positioning ourselves as you're thirsty and I'm the one that can lead you to the water, it's a very different dynamic than, hey, we're all buddy-buddy, or like I'm pulling you and trying to force you and sell you on like, let me sell you on why you need water. Like that's no, right? So when we switch our marketing around and we really find that perfect person that we can connect with, that we know we can serve the most and at the highest level. And when I say serve the most, I don't mean the person who is the most desperate, right? Maybe there are people who need what we have the most on paper, right? Like they're in such a dire situation. I don't want you focusing on that, but focus on that person who can gain the most out of working with you, who has the resources to invest in whatever that looks like for your business, but that you can make a big impact on them because they are ready and able to implement and do whatever it is that you're helping them with, right? So really figuring out who that perfect person is and making sure you're positioning yourself as that person who can help them. So that would definitely be like number one tip. Number two would be shifting from informing to transforming. So what do I mean by this? Right now, I think it's very popular to be creating how-to content, to be teaching people how they should do things, right? The problem is information right now is a commodity, and it's only going to be more of a commodity in the months and years to come. Like that is a fact. Anything somebody wants to know, they can Google, they can YouTube, it is there. The information exists and people are creating, I wish I had stats, but like every day there's more, right? Like it's compounding every day. We've never had so much information at our fingertips. So information is not really valued. So you might be creating something that is teaching someone how to do something, and maybe that post is getting engagement. Maybe people are commenting, liking, even sharing, right? It's useful. However, it's not memorable, and it's not building that relationship that they're going to want you to be that person for them, right? They're not truly seeing you as the authority through that relationship because they're just consuming it. Nothing changed. When you shift from, if you're some people are going to be like, this is everything I do is how-to content or information content. You don't have to fully stop, but just know that that's not the kind of content that's going to convert. I want you to shift to doing content that transforms, that's going to shift the way they view the world, they view themselves, they view the opportunities in front of them. I want you to really create content that's going to lead that person down that path to the water, right? And the thing is, it's not just there's like a path and people don't know where to go. They have limiting beliefs in the way that they see the world and their own opportunities and their own limitations and all of these things that are holding them back from doing whatever it is that you can help them with. So helping them have those mindset shifts long before you're ever in a sales conversation. People are like, how do I overcome objections? Not that we should never overcome objections, but I want you overcoming those objections before they ever come up. Right. Know what those objections are and use your content and your conversations and your videos, your written content, whatever it is to help shift those beliefs. So you're slowly leading them to be ready to work with you or to buy your course or whatever it is that you can help them with. So that's a big one right there. Another tip I would give would be to stop telling and start showing. So what I mean by this is, and I'm going to use my poor uncle, but I keep using him as an example because it's kind of an extreme example, and I think it paints the picture really well. And he's a doctor. He's an OBGYN, actually, specifically. And he just created an Instagram account. And he posted this picture of him and this woman who he delivered her baby 30 years ago. She's still a patient, and then next to her is the baby who he delivered 30 years ago, who's now a 30-year-old woman. And she's pregnant and is also now a patient of his, right? So it's a really powerful picture of, multiple generations, all of them together, arm in arm. And the caption was, which clearly was not written by him, but was written by somebody else on the team. And the caption was, Dr. So-and-so values building relationships with his clients. He, here he is standing with so-and-so and about to deliver so-and-so's baby. And it was such a powerful photo. And the caption felt so cool. It was literally telling, right? And now most people are not this extreme, but I like using this example. But a lot of times we're like, I'm good at this. I can help you with this. Like, we're very matter of fact, right?
Right.
And we tell them the thing. But when we tell someone something, they usually don't believe it. There's a disconnect, right? So and now he had the picture there. So certainly it was better than just having it be copy on the website with no picture, right? So people were seeing it, but they were, telling in the copy. But what I had said to him was, what if we changed this? And what if instead of saying, Dr. Casella does this,
Oopsies. You want me to bleep that out later?
No. Dr. So-and-so does this and this. What if we said, I'm so honored to be standing here today next to my patient who I delivered her first baby 30 years ago. And now I'm, getting ready to deliver her daughter who was the baby I delivered. And this whole moment is surreal. And I'm so honored to be serving multiple generations of women in my practice, something like that, where now there's a connection there, right? And the person who reads that is going to have an emotional response like, how amazing. And there's subtext there, right? There's subtext that, wow, this woman has been going to him for this many years and now she referred her daughter and she's going to, this is real. There's so many things there that now that person reading is going to have an emotional connection with him and his practice. And they're going to understand all of these things that they could say, I serve women for all these years, but seeing it and showing it through that story makes it so much more powerful. So I want us to start thinking about, what are those messages that we want the people who are following us to get? What do we want them to think about us or know about us? And how can we start sharing that in a way that is showing and not telling, right? And that might mean, if we're trying to position ourselves as the authority, that might mean going out and maybe getting on a summit like this, or being a guest on podcasts, or being featured in the media. And that way you're not like, hey, I'm an expert, but you're able to show that you're being featured as an expert in all of these places. So to really start thinking about, what are those things that you want to make sure, whoever it is, that perfect person for you, what do you want them to think about you, your brand, your, whatever it is you're selling, and then how can you start showing that? Case studies, client testimonials, there's a million different ways that you can do this. Even just changing the way that you're sharing the information to be more of a storytelling format is much more engaging, but also allows them to really see it for themselves and deduct that for themselves, which now then they believe it. If they're just reading your words and having to take it at face value, there's a lot more resistance there.
All right, that is super useful, especially for any writers that might be listening to this, because the show don't tell is always pushed so hard. That was really, really useful. So I'd like to speak to. We're going to go a little late because you're too valuable. So we're already past our 5-minute warning. We're going to go a little late because I have more questions. Okay. I'd like to speak a little bit to that. So you mentioned who that perfect person is that we're going to talk to. I'd like to speak a little bit to, how do we not worry so much about it being that perfect person, so that we then just get the content out there, get our branding out there, and can maybe relax into it a little bit, so that it doesn't become this, oh my God, what if I don't get it right? Right?
Ooh, okay. Well, so I don't know if this is the answer that you want me to say here based on the way that you're saying it. But here's the thing. If you are just starting off, or if you're not sure who that perfect person is, do not let it hold you back. I want you working and sharing your message and your offers to a variety of people to see, who does it gravitate towards the most? Who needs it the most? Because a lot of times, the person who we think up, or if it's like literally just like, well, my friend hired me and she did this, so now that's my niche. Like, that's probably not a good indicator that that's the best niche you should be serving, right? So I want to, one, give permission for exploration. And because finding that perfect person does take time. And there will be times when maybe it even needs like a big business pivot. That happened to me. I had a big business pivot early on because I realized that the people that I was talking to were not the people that I could really serve at the highest level. So, and part of that was, we could do a whole interview just on that. But part of it was not that the people were different, but the mindset of the people were different, which leads me to pay more attention to the psychographics than the demographics. So I'm not as concerned about how old that perfect person is, or their exact job title even, or how many kids they have, or whether they're married or single or what have you, right? Now, maybe depending on your industry, there are things that would matter in, right? If you're a relationship coach, it probably matters whether they're married or single. If you're helping them with something related to being a mom, you need to know if they have kids. So there are scenarios where that stuff is important, but for a lot of us, it's not. I want you to focus more on their mindset. What are they struggling with? What do they want, right? What are their goals? When I made that shift in my business early on, I was focused on mom business owners. That was my niche. And through a whole story that I won't share all the details of today, but through another path, I started getting some clients. And on the outside, they looked exactly the same as the clients I was already working with, right? They were moms, they had businesses, like literally identical to me. Even the stage of business for some of them was very similar. So it's not like they were much further ahead or making that much more money. Like on the outside, it looked exactly the same. But the difference was my brand at the time, because remember, I wasn't a personal brand back then, right? My brand at the time was chasing dreams and littles. So I was attracting, through that brand, moms who were chasing dreams and chasing their littles and were maybe not as serious about the business that they wanted to grow.
Chasing dreams rather than actually achieving them.
Right?
Yeah.
And their dreams were much different than the dreams of these other women. Their dreams were to make enough money to take their family to Disney World, or to pay for dance lessons for their daughter, or karate for their son, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Their dreams were making $600,000 a month, maybe $2,000 a month, like, oh my goodness, if someday I could ever possibly make $5,000 a month, that would just be, right? Where this other group of women, on the outside, exactly the same, right? But they were looking to build something a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. And their dreams were a lot bigger. And they weren't considering themselves as mom business owners, even though they were technically moms and business owners. And that's really how I identify today, right? I would never introduce myself as a mom business owner. But I didn't realize that starting out. Right? I wasn't in the space yet. I was a mom, but I didn't have a business when I started that business. So that was like, oh, I want to be a mom business owner. Let me connect with other people who want to do that and I can help them through what I know. Right? So that was such a good lesson for me in realizing, okay, it's not just about the demographic. We also want to know, what is that person? What are their struggles? But what are their dreams and desires, and what do they want, so that we can make sure that we're talking to that person and what we say is going to resonate with them. Because I could be selling the same thing, but it's going to be a very different conversation if what I'm saying is going to attract that mom who just wants to pay for dance lessons versus attracting that mom who wants to build an empire, right? So really being conscious of, who do we want to serve? So give yourself that space to kind of figure it out and test different things. But then once you find that perfect person, become obsessed with them. Then I want you worrying about it. So at first, like, okay, test it out. But then when you find it to truly up level, I want you to be obsessed with this person and their desires and their struggles and what they're thinking and feeling and what they want and what they're trying and what's not working and all of those things. Because when you understand them at that level, and here's the thing, understanding them comes from talking to them. Right? Oh, and it's not just having one conversation or two conversations. When you're having lots of conversations, that's when you see the patterns. Right. That's when you're able to spot the patterns and say, okay, this is a trend. Everyone's feeling like this, right? when getting involved, where are they already hanging out? What podcasts or TV shows are they watching? Like really like immersing yourself in that person and what they're immersed in, because that's when you're able to really create connection. And that's what this is all about, is creating connection.
Awesome. So do you have any other nuggets of wisdom? Because honestly, I feel like you probably could go all day with wisdom.
Oh, so one thing I didn't say in the beginning that I just hinted at here, but I'll make a bigger point, is that when we think about how do we stand out, right? Mm-hmm. The way to stand out is by creating connection. And so when we are looking to stand out amongst people who might be competition or doing something similar, or just in a, it's noisy out there. There's a lot of people who are really passionate about what they do and probably really good at what they do. So how do you stand out? You stand out by really creating connection. And that's where all of those other things come into place, because the content that you're creating, when you understand that person you're creating it for, and when you're starting to create in that way that transforms and shows that story, and that you're positioned as this person who can help them, that's when you have that connection and you're able to really cut through the noise.
I love that. Thank you. I understand you have a free gift for this audience. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I talk a lot about building authority, but the idea of building authority can seem pretty abstract, right? Like, how does one build authority? And there's a lot of different ways that you can build authority. But what I've put together for anyone watching today is a 30-day action plan. So it's my 30 days of authority building action plan, where I literally tell you something to do every single day for 30 days to build your authority. Now, it doesn't all have to be done in 30 days, but when you start to do those activities every single day, that's when you build momentum. And momentum leads to explosive growth and opportunities and so many things. Now, what I love about this plan is that I tried to pull from all the different areas that I help my clients with, because building authority is not just about marketing and messaging. It's also about mindset and believing that you're that authority and showing up and growing your own platform and leveraging other people's platform, and the offers that you have and how are those offers anchoring in your authority, all of these things, right? So this 30-day plan has a little bit from all of those different categories to make sure that you're building authority in the right way. And it's totally free. So take advantage of it while it's there.
That sounds like an amazing thing. I'm like, you were talking about it, and I'm like, oh, I need to do that, like with a group of people. We'll just do your authority plan together.
Oh, I love that.
That'd be great. So thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate all your wisdom.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.